What are cytokines and what is a cytokine storm? A common term that we have been hearing during COVID times. So let's understand first what is a cytokine. Now cytokine is a calm, gentle breeze which you can equate to, and it's a first responder to any infection that a body faces. So what happens is these cytokines are the cells that talk to each other and maintain a healthy immune network. These cytokine receptors are present throughout the body across all the organs, and they make sure that there is a proper signaling. If there is an immune response that has to be generated, these cytokines get activated. However, there can be scenario when these cytokines get overactivated, and that is what is known as cytokine storm, which is significantly dreadful and harmful for survival. So what we would understand in this section is how cytokines function, why it is good that they remain slow, and what would happen if they convert into a fast pace, and what is a cytokine storm. Now, these receptors bind to immune cell, they can also bind to non-immune cells, and according to the binding, they adjust how to grow and how to behave. So these cytokines have a very direct influence with the body, as they know that there is a pathogen or an infection that is entering into the body, and they need to generate a response based on the antibodies which we already have. Now, how do they get activated, or how do they function? So what happens is when the pathogen enters into a human body, now when the pathogen enters into a human body, there is a response which is created. Now this response, what it does is it creates a huge kind of turmoil within the body. So the body cells tend to inflame. So there is an inflammation that develops. Now, as the inflammation develops, in response to the inflammation, the cytokines start to work. They get activated, they get alert. Now, when they are working, what would happen? Because of the inflammation around the cell walls, this blood would start to leak. And when the blood starts to leak, this blood would come out and this would reach the damaged areas. So as you can see, the blood which was here comes out and reaches the area where the healing requires, and the cytokine gets activated and starts to heal the body. So very simple. There is the leak of the blood. This leak of the blood enters into the surrounding tissue and starts to go to the areas that have been damaged and quickly starts to repair. But what happens in reaction to our immune system? Why do we say that cytokines need to be slow, and what would happen if they turn out to be fast? So as we discussed previously, immune system is composed of two immune bases, innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate is the inborn immunity. Adaptive immunity is the immunity that we have received because we had experienced an illness or a vaccination prior to it. Now, the amount and the type of the cytokines cells that are secreted would differ. Right amount and right type of cytokine are required. So if the amount is too much, it could lead to a cytokine storm. If not the right kind of cytokine is released, it would keep on forming, and it won't actually be binding to the pathogen and would not create an effective method of control. So these cytokines need to be in a slow response. Now, why do I say slow response? Because this slow response would avoid any collateral damage to the body, and it would avoid the cases of rapid immune system generation, because if there is lot of cytokines that are generated together, the immune system would act rapidly, and if it acts rapidly, it would lead to a cytokine storm, which could lead to organ damage, which could lead to a shock, and therefore, cytokines need to be released in a slow and a systematic form and a right amount. Now, with these cytokines being released, let's say you witnessed a disease. Now, when you witnessed a disease, you already have the antibodies of that disease in the body. Now, next time, if you are witnessing similar exposure, what would happen? In that scenario, these cytokines would direct the brain cells to get activated and ask you to rest. Now, this is a mechanism to avoid any further exposure to new pathogens. Lethargy, fatigue, tiredness are some of the symptoms which are generated because of the impact of cytokine on our body. And therefore, cytokine response is very, very important to check. If those are not checked at the right time, they can lead to cytokine storm, where too many pathogens which are released at once enter into the body, and body secretes either a wrong type of cytokine or too much of cytokine in response to curb that. Now, this could direct the immune system in a wrong way and release more than required amount. So, what would happen? If that happens, there is already the inflammation of the tissues. Now, with the inflammation of the cells, the blood becomes highly porous and starts to move. Now, as the blood moves here, there would be low blood pressure, which would lead to reduced oxygen in the blood, and this reduced oxygen in the blood could lead to difficulties of breathing, difficulties of fluid retention in the lungs, as we have seen in COVID-19 as one of the major symptoms. In certain cases, if it is affecting other organs, since cytokine receptors are present all across the body, it could lead to organ damage, shock. Most interesting to note is cytokines are very, very small. Though we have a blood-brain barrier in our neurological systems, but these cytokines are much smaller cells and they can travel to the brain as well, leading to neurological symptoms. So, brain's protective membrane also is not very, very effective in order to control these cytokine storms. Some of the common symptoms where cytokine storm starts with is headache, migraine, reduced diet, reduced appetite, higher need for sleep, overwhelmed fatigue, which could be witnessed. So those are an indicators which could lead to if not properly managed, could lead to a cytokine storm. So that was about what is cytokine, what are cytokine receptors, and how cytokine storms occur, which is one of the common causes of most of the casualties as we have witnessed during COVID-19. We would be covering more classes related to antibodies, immune system in the upcoming classes. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.